Hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. So for this week's video tutorial I'll be drawing actually the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, but I'm doing a more horror version of that essential storyline. So as I began on this drawing, I was trying to work out a really interesting pose for this character because he is supposed to be a little crazy. So essentially, the way I approached the design for this character is I assumed that he was essentially intoxicated by the tea. So you don't know what's actually in the tea that he's serving, but you do know that there's probably a couple of extra ingredients that have been added to help cope with the fact that he's trying to make light of the situation that he's currently surrounded by. So that's essentially the reasoning that I had while I was working on this painting. Now, to help tie in all the elements once again, I did add more of a ribcage look to the overall painting. Right now I'm actually just sketching out the rough design elements that I want to include into the final image. And I'm working out some of the costume, how much bone cartilage I'll be showing, and what type of details I'll be adding in to the final image. Once I had the rough, essentially stick figure of the character figured out, I already understood the pose for this character. So the next phase was for me to essentially work out the details. For the legs though, I went through a couple of alliterations and different designs for the legs, and then finally settled on the one that I'm currently working on right now. Now I decided to have essentially almost a loose look to his pants and have it essentially come to essentially almost an armored shin guard, because essentially the world that they're living in, they're always on guard. They have to be, just because the person in charge of their world is more crazy than anybody else in that world, so they never know what's going to come. So even though they have like some Victorian style clothing, there is some hints of armor elements within the design itself, and that's mostly for their protection because they need to be prepared in case of any event. So right now I'm adding some shadows. I've already worked out the rough colors that I'm going to be using for his clothing designs, and I've added some hints of highlights that I'm essentially using and sampling the colors for in order to actually add the details in. Now it's very important that I don't over add details, so any areas that are more in shadow I won't be touching and I won't be adding any more information there. But the rest of the areas I'm making sure to essentially hint at the detail so that it's clear enough should this ever by any chance be made into a production, it can easily be understood by whoever's creating the models. So I'm just adding some more, emphasizing some of the detail in those pants and the shirts. Now I experimented a bit with that shirt collar just because I wanted to make it very interesting and unique. So I'm essentially giving him a coat, and once again I'm including the bone-like look to the coat and also the rib cage underneath. Adding the shin guards, once again including that bone-like aspect to it. The bones are very important in this story, just because I will be making the queen into a giant cannibal. So essentially, in order to survive, they have to almost look the part. They have to, because it's a design element that's been incorporated by this point into their culture. So it's a very important thing to include. Who knows, maybe after I've done all the characters I may decide to actually do some of the background layouts and general concepts for the backgrounds, because I do have some general ideas of what I would be doing. Once again, it'll depend on you guys and your feedback, so make sure you guys give me what you'd like to see in future videos, especially if you want to see this theme again. Make sure to vote, because that is important. If it doesn't get voted, then it doesn't get painted. So working out the details. I'm just darkening up certain elements. Now I want to have a very disheveled look for his hair, and I'm making sure to have a little smirk, and once again I'm making his eyes very unsettling and unnatural, because this entire world is very unnatural. Looking at the table, since there were still some perspective lines, I had to paint those out. Once again, that's something I try to avoid, but every so often I forget, so unfortunately I have to go and paint over those. For the teacups, all I did is I duplicated the one cup that I had made, and then I simply moved them around until I got something that was interesting. This guy is known for liking his tea, so he's essentially pouring multiple teacups at the same time, not really caring whether or not he actually gets it into the teacups. He's more haphazardly doing that. And as I was doing the table, I was trying to incorporate elements from a different design that you will later see. So I had some ideas of some of the teacup designs and the kettles that I was going to actually use for this painting. Looking at the highlights, adding some chairs, and I'm just populating the rest of it with some food, because generally if you have tea you're going to have something else too. Maybe you're going to have a meal. Just adding a bit more of his coat there, and this is the final image. As you can see, I did quite a bit of extra work afterwards that I didn't record, but this is the final image. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys soon, so thank you and take care.